Reviewer orders 10. Late-night deliveries to expose ends with apologies and a warm hug instead. At 11:47 p.m. on a rain-soaked Tuesday night, Marcus Thompson placed his 10th food delivery order of the evening, his ring light casting harsh shadows across his face as he prepared to document what he called the Midnight Delivery Disaster Experiment. His YouTube channel, Real Reviews with Marcus, had built its 1.8 million subscriber base on a simple formula order food at the worst possible times in the most challenging conditions, then film delivery drivers' struggles for content. Tonight's storm provided perfect conditions for what Marcus planned to title Why Late Night Delivery is Broken, Epic Fail Compilation. What Marcus didn't know was that the final delivery driver heading toward his apartment through the torrential downpour was Miguel Santos, a 23-year-old engineering student working 3 jobs to support his younger siblings after their parents died in a car accident 2 years earlier. Miguel had been delivering food for 14 hours straight, soaked to the bone, his motorcycle's headlight barely cutting through the storm. And what Marcus absolutely couldn't have predicted was that Miguel's unwavering kindness in the face of impossible circumstances would shatter not just his planned content, but his entire worldview about what it meant to be human in a world designed to reward cruelty. The video Marcus was about to create would indeed go viral, but as a testament to compassion rather than a catalog of complaints. If you find value in real stories told with clarity and truth, make sure to subscribe to stay informed with Real Father Story. The Midnight Predator Marcus Thompson had perfected the art of manufacturing misery for content, and tonight's storm provided ideal conditions for his cruelest experiment yet. At 29, Marcus had built his reputation as the honest reviewer who exposed the food delivery industry's supposed failures. His apartment was equipped like a professional studio, multiple cameras, perfect lighting, audio equipment that captured every frustrated sigh and complaint from delivery drivers who had no idea they were being recorded for entertainment. The formula was devastatingly simple order from restaurants during their worst shifts request complex modifications that guaranteed mistakes demand deliveries during weather that made the job dangerous, then film the inevitable human struggles that resulted. His audience loved watching exhausted drivers fumble with orders, loved hearing Marcus's justified complaints about service that was doomed to fail from the start. Tonight's plan was Marcus's most ambitious yet. 10 different orders from 10 different restaurants, all placed between 11 p.m. and midnight during the worst storm the city had seen in months. Each order was designed to create problems, complicated customizations, difficult-to-find apartment entrances, requirements for drivers to navigate flooded streets, and malfunctioning elevators. What's up, Real Review family? Marcus began addressing his camera with the confident smirk that had made him internet famous. Tonight, we're conducting the ultimate stress test of the delivery industry. I've ordered from 10 different places during this monster storm, and we're going to see just how badly these companies fail when conditions get real. Marcus had positioned cameras at 3 angles, one focused on his reactions, one pointed at the door to capture drivers' arrivals, and one handheld camera for following the action. His ring light created the perfect dramatic atmosphere for what he planned to be his most viral content yet. I've made each order as complex as possible, Marcus explained to his audience, pulling up the delivery apps on his phone. Specific temperature requirements, multiple substitutions, detailed delivery instructions that will test whether these drivers are actually paying attention or just going through the motions. The first order arrived at 11:15 p.m. A young woman in her early 20s, water streaming from her delivery bag, fumbled with Marcus's intentionally confusing apartment directions while he filmed through his peephole camera. "Excuse me," she called through the door. "I think I have your Thai food, but the apartment numbers don't match what's on the app." Marcus let her struggle for 3 full minutes before opening the door camera, rolling to capture her soaked clothes and frustrated expression. "Did you follow the delivery instructions?" Marcus demanded, knowing he had written them to be deliberately contradictory. I tried, but either you followed them, or you didn't. Marcus interrupted his voice, carrying the authoritative tone that made his followers feel like witnesses to justified confrontation rather than manufactured cruelty. The driver apologized repeatedly while Marcus inspected the order with exaggerated scrutiny, finding fault with the temperature of the packaging and the fact that she had taken an extra 5 minutes to navigate his maze-like building. "This is exactly what I'm talking about," Marcus said to his camera after the driver left. "No attention to detail, no accountability for quality service. This is why the industry needs honest reviewers like us." Orders 2 through 9 followed the same pattern. Drivers struggling through the storm, arriving wet and exhausted to face Marcus's impossible standards and hidden cameras. Each encounter was designed to showcase delivery workers at their worst moments, creating content that portrayed their very human struggles as professional failures. Marcus's audience ate it up. The live stream chat filled with comments praising him for holding these lazy drivers accountable and exposing what delivery really looks like when companies think no one is watching. But as Marcus prepared for his final order of the evening, something was about to change. Order number 10 was being handled by Miguel Santos, and Miguel was different from every other driver Marcus had encountered. Miguel had started his shift at 6 a.m. working construction before switching to food delivery for the evening rush. The storm had made every delivery a nightmare. Flooded streets, broken GPS signals, customers who treated him like an inconvenience rather than someone trying to help them get fed during dangerous weather. But Miguel had never complained, never lost his temper, never treated a customer with anything less than genuine kindness. Even when people were rude, even when tips were small, even when orders were wrong, and customers blamed him for kitchen mistakes he had no control over. Miguel's younger siblings, Sofia 16 and Carlos 14, were home doing homework, counting on him to bring back enough money for groceries and rent. Every delivery, no matter how difficult, was a step toward keeping their small family together and fed. As Miguel navigated his motorcycle through streets that had become rivers carrying Marcus's final order of the night, he had no idea he was about to encounter someone whose entire livelihood depended on making his job as miserable as possible. But Miguel also had no idea that his unwavering humanity was about to transform not just Marcus's content, but Marcus himself. At 11:52 p.m., Miguel pulled up to Marcus's building, secured the food in waterproof bags, and began the climb to an apartment where someone was waiting with cameras, cruel intentions, and a heart that was about to be completely changed by the power of genuine human kindness. The final delivery. Miguel Santos had been riding through the storm for 6 hours, his jacket soaked through his motorcycle's engine, coughing with each flooded intersection he navigated. But as he climbed the stairs to apartment 4C, he carried Marcus's order with the same care he brought to every delivery, regardless of weather time or his own exhaustion. Marcus watched through his peephole camera as Miguel approached, already composing his critique. The driver was young, clearly struggling with the building's confusing layout, and his delivery bag showed signs of the storm's impact. Perfect material for content about unprofessional service and poor weather preparation. But something was different about this driver. Despite being drenched, despite the late hour, despite the obvious difficulty of finding the right apartment, Miguel moved with purpose rather than frustration. He checked the apartment numbers, carefully consulted his phone to confirm the address, and when he reached Marcus's door, he paused to ensure the food packaging was as dry as possible. Miguel knocked gently. Not the hurried rap of someone eager to finish their shift, but the considerate tap of someone aware that people might be sleeping. Marcus opened the door with his handheld camera, ready expecting to capture another exhausted driver's mistakes. Instead, he found Miguel smiling genuinely, despite water dripping from his hair, holding the delivery bag like it contained something precious. "Good evening," Miguel said, his voice warm despite the circumstances. "I have your order from Mario's Pizza. I'm really sorry it took a bit longer than expected. The storm has made some of the streets pretty challenging to navigate safely." Marcus blinked momentarily, thrown off his script. Most drivers by this point in the evening were barely managing politeness. Miguel was apologizing for circumstances completely beyond his control, while maintaining genuine courtesy. "Did you follow the delivery instructions?" Marcus asked, camera rolling, trying to return to his planned confrontation. Miguel nodded enthusiastically. "Yes, sir. I read them carefully. You requested the food be kept as warm as possible despite the weather, and that I call when I arrived instead of using the buzzer system. I tried calling, but I think the storm might be affecting cell service, so I came up to make sure you got your order while it was still hot." Marcus looked at his phone and realized he had missed Miguel's call because he'd been focused on setting up his camera angles. The driver had actually followed the instructions perfectly, despite Marcus having designed them to be deliberately difficult. The pizza box got a tiny bit of moisture on one corner. Miguel continued showing Marcus the minimal water damage, so I asked the restaurant to double wrap everything just in case. I also brought extra napkins since the weather's been tough on everyone tonight. Marcus stared at Miguel, his planned critique dissolving as he processed what was happening. This wasn't the struggling, incompetent driver his content formula required. This was someone who had gone above and beyond to ensure quality service under impossible conditions. "How long have you been working tonight?" Marcus asked, lowering his camera slightly. Miguel checked his phone. "Since about 6 a.m., but the delivery shift started at 4 p.m. It's been a long day, but honestly, I'm just grateful for the work. Not everyone wants to order food in weather like this, so every delivery really helps." The comment hit Marcus like a physical blow. While he had been manufacturing problems for content, Miguel had been genuinely grateful for each order, seeing Marcus's manufactured difficulty as an opportunity rather than a burden. Are you okay?" Marcus asked, noticing Miguel shivering despite his smile. "You're soaked through." Miguel laughed, and the sound was so genuinely pleasant that Marcus found himself smiling involuntarily. "I'm fine, sir. This is just part of the job sometimes. My motorcycle isn't great in weather like this, but she gets me where I need to go." Marcus looked past Miguel towards the stairwell, where water was pooling from his wet clothes. "How many more deliveries do you have tonight?" "This is actually my last one," Miguel said, his relief evident. "After this, I get to go home to my brother and sister. They're probably worried about me being out in the storm, but they know I always make it home safe." The mention of siblings waiting at home shattered something fundamental in Marcus's chest. He had been planning to document Miguel's struggles for entertainment, completely blind to the fact that this young man had a family, depending on him, had been working for 17 hours straight, and was still treating Marcus with kindness and respect. "Miguel," Marcus said, reading the name from the delivery app, then stopping. He had been about to launch into his usual critique about delivery time and food temperature, but the words felt suddenly obscene. "Yes, sir?" Marcus looked at Miguel's genuine smile, his professional demeanor despite being exhausted, and soaked his obvious pride in doing good work under terrible conditions. Then Marcus looked at his own setup. Multiple cameras positioned to capture and monetize this young man's struggles, an apartment chosen specifically for its confusing layout, an evening designed entirely around creating content from other people's hardships. Marcus started, then stopped. For the first time in his content creation career, he was seeing his target as a complete human being, rather than raw material for entertainment. Miguel waited patiently, still holding the pizza with careful attention, despite the fact that Marcus had obviously received it safely. "Miguel, can I ask you something?" Marcus said, making a decision that would change everything. "Of course, sir." Marcus turned off his camera. "Why are you being so nice to me? After the night you've had, after all the deliveries in this weather, why are you still smiling?" Miguel looked genuinely surprised by the question. "Why wouldn't I be nice to you, sir? You're letting me do my job. You ordered food that helps keep me employed, and you're giving me the chance to earn money that helps my family. I should be thanking you." The words hung in the air between them like a revelation Marcus wasn't prepared to receive. But the storm, the late hour, the difficult building," Marcus pressed. Miguel shrugged. "Those things aren't your fault. And even if they were, being upset about them wouldn't make my job easier or my family's situation better. I learned a long time ago that you can choose to be bitter about difficult circumstances, or you can choose to find something good in them. Marcus stared at Miguel, processing the profound simplicity of that philosophy. Here was someone who had every reason to be frustrated, cynical, or resentful, choosing instead to approach the world with genuine kindness. "Miguel," Marcus said slowly, "I have something I need to tell you." The revelation, Marcus looked at Miguel's expectant face and felt the weight of his deception crushing down on his chest like a physical force. "I haven't been honest with you," Marcus said, his voice barely above a whisper. "I'm a food reviewer. I ordered from 10 different places tonight specifically to document problems with late-night delivery service." Miguel's expression didn't change, but Marcus saw something flicker in his eyes. Not anger or hurt, but understanding mixed with disappointment. "You were filming me," Miguel said quietly. It wasn't a question. Marcus nodded, miserably. "I had cameras set up to capture drivers struggling, making mistakes, getting frustrated. I was planning to edit it into content about how unreliable delivery service is during bad weather." Miguel was quiet for a long moment, processing this information. Marcus expected anger, accusations, demands to delete the footage. Instead, Miguel asked a simple question that cut deeper than any accusation could have. "Did I do something wrong with your order?" The question broke Marcus completely. "No," he said, his voice cracking. "No, Miguel, you did everything perfectly. You went above and beyond what anyone could reasonably expect. You were professional, kind, and thoughtful, despite working in impossible conditions. Then why were you hoping to film me failing?" Marcus had no answer that wouldn't make him sound like a monster. Because it would get views. Because his audience enjoyed watching service workers struggle. Because manufacturing outrage was more profitable than celebrating excellence. "Because I'm a terrible person," Marcus said honestly. "Because I built my career on making content from other people's worst moments, and I convinced myself I was providing a public service instead of just being cruel." Miguel leaned against the doorframe, and for the first time that evening he looked as tired as he probably felt. "How many drivers have you filmed like this?" "Dozens," Marcus admitted. "Maybe hundreds over the past 2 years. And you post the videos online?" "Yes. They get millions of views. People seem to enjoy watching delivery drivers have problems." Miguel absorbed this information with the same patience he had shown throughout their interaction. "Can I ask you something now?" Marcus nodded. "What do you think happens to those drivers after your videos go viral? Do you think about whether they might lose their jobs or get harassment from viewers, or just feel humiliated knowing thousands of strangers have watched their worst moments?" The questions hit Marcus like a series of physical blows. He had never considered the aftermath of his content for the people he featured. They were just characters in his videos, not real people with lives that could be damaged by public mockery. "I never thought about that," Marcus said quietly. "My younger brother Carlos is 16, Miguel continued. "He's been thinking about getting a part-time job to help with expenses. If he became a delivery driver and someone filmed him struggling, then posted it online for people to laugh at, it would destroy him. He's already self-conscious about our family situation, about having to work instead of just focusing on school." Marcus felt physically sick as he imagined Miguel's brother experiencing the kind of public humiliation his content had inflicted on countless other young workers. "Miguel, I'm so sorry," Marcus said. I didn't think about the real people behind the deliveries. But that's the thing," Miguel said gently. "We are real people. We have families, dreams, struggles, good days and bad days, just like everyone else. We're not characters in your content. We're human beings trying to make a living and take care of the people we love." Marcus looked at his cameras, still positioned to capture Miguel's reactions, and felt disgusted with himself. Would you let me delete all the footage from tonight and apologize properly?" Miguel studied Marcus's face with the same careful attention he brought to reading delivery instructions. "I think that would be good," he said finally. "But I have a question. What made you change your mind?" Marcus considered the question seriously. "You did. Your kindness despite everything. The weather, the late hour, the difficult conditions, my dishonesty. You treated me with respect even when I was planning to exploit your struggles. You chose to be good when you had every reason not to be." Miguel smiled, and Marcus realized it was the first completely genuine smile he had seen all evening. Not the professional courtesy of a service worker, but the real warmth of someone who had been seen and understood as a human being. "That means a lot," Miguel said. "Thank you for telling me the truth." Marcus disappeared into his apartment and returned with a towel and a hot cup of coffee. "Please," he said, offering both to Miguel. "It's the least I can do." Miguel accepted the towel gratefully and wrapped his hands around the warm mug. "This is very kind of you." "It's not kind," Marcus said. "It's basic human decency, which apparently I forgot how to show until you reminded me tonight." They stood in comfortable silence for a moment, Miguel warming himself with the coffee, while Marcus processed the enormity of what he had been planning to do versus what was actually happening. "Miguel," Marcus said, finally, "can I ask you about your family? Your brother and sister you mentioned." Miguel's face lit up with genuine pride. "Sofia is 16. Carlos is 14. They're both incredible kids. Straight-A students, responsible kind. They've had to grow up too fast since our parents died, but they never complain. They just work hard and take care of each other. And you take care of all of them," Marcus observed. Miguel shrugged. "We take care of each other. That's what families do." The simple statement carried a weight that made Marcus ashamed of his own selfishness. While he had been manufacturing problems for entertainment, Miguel had been solving real problems for people he loved. "Would you—" Marcus hesitated, then forced himself to continue. "Would you let me help? Not for content, not for cameras, just because I want to do something decent for once." Miguel looked puzzled. "Help how?" Marcus pulled out his phone and opened his banking app. "I made about $30,000 last month from videos that mostly involved filming delivery drivers having difficult nights. That money came from people's struggles. People like you." He showed Miguel his account balance. What if some of that money went to making sure Carlos and Sofia could focus on school instead of worrying about whether you have enough work to pay rent? Miguel's eyes widened. "Sir, I can't accept—" "It's not charity," Marcus interrupted. "It's justice. That money should have never been mine in the first place." Marcus looked at his cameras one more time, then back at Miguel. "And I want to do something else if you'll let me. I want to tell your story, your real story, with your permission showing who you actually are, instead of exploiting your struggles. I want people to understand that every delivery driver is someone's Miguel, someone working impossibly hard to take care of people they love." Miguel was quiet for a long time, processing this unexpected turn. Finally, he smiled and extended his hand to Marcus. "I'd like that," he said. "But only if you promise to tell the truth about all of it, including how you were planning to use me for content and what made you change your mind." Marcus shook Miguel's hand, feeling like he was making the first honest agreement of his adult life. "I promise," he said, "the whole truth." As they shook hands, Marcus realized he was about to create the most important content of his career, not by exploiting someone's struggles, but by celebrating their humanity. The transformation. 2 hours later, Marcus and Miguel sat in Marcus's living room, cameras repositioned not to ambush, but to honor creating content that would change both their lives forever. Marcus had spent those 2 hours listening to Miguel's story, with the attention he had never given to any of his previous subjects. He learned about parents lost in a car accident, about Miguel dropping out of engineering school to support his siblings, about 14-hour workdays split between construction and delivery driving, about Sofia's dreams of becoming a teacher, and Carlos's talent for mathematics. Most importantly, Marcus learned about resilience, dignity, and the choice to respond to hardship with kindness rather than bitterness. "Are you ready?" Marcus asked, his hand hovering over the record button. Miguel nodded, no longer the exhausted delivery driver from 2 hours earlier, but Marcus's collaborator in creating something meaningful. "Hi, everyone." Marcus began looking directly into the camera, with an expression far different from his usual confident smirk. "My name is Marcus Thompson, and I need to tell you about the worst thing I've ever done, and the person who stopped me from doing it." Over the next 47 minutes, Marcus told the complete truth. He explained his content strategy showed footage of his camera setup, read comments from previous videos, where viewers mocked delivery drivers' struggles. He admitted to the deliberate cruelty of his experiments and the financial motivation behind manufacturing others' misery. Then he introduced Miguel. "This is Miguel Santos." Marcus said, his voice carrying genuine respect. 2 hours ago, I was planning to film him struggling with my intentionally difficult delivery order so I could post it for your entertainment. Instead, he taught me something about humanity that I'd forgotten existed. Miguel shared his story simply and without self-pity. He talked about his siblings, his parents, his work, and his philosophy of choosing kindness over bitterness. He explained why he smiled through difficult deliveries, why he thanked customers even when they were rude, why he found gratitude in work that others might see as demeaning. "I don't do this job because I love carrying food through storms," Miguel said to the camera. "I do it because it lets me take care of my family, and when you're working for something bigger than yourself, you can find dignity in any honest work." Marcus watched his live viewer count climb beyond anything his confrontational content had ever achieved. But more importantly, he watched the comment section fill with responses he had never seen before. "This is beautiful. Thank you for sharing Miguel's story. I'm a delivery driver and this made me cry. Thank you for seeing us as human. Miguel, you are an inspiration. Marcus, thank you for changing. I used to enjoy the drama videos, but this is so much better. This is real content." Marcus pulled up his banking app, live on camera. "I told Miguel that I've made about $30,000 per month from content that mostly involved filming delivery workers' difficult moments. That money came from exploiting people like him." He navigated to his transfer screen. "So I'm sending $15,000 to Miguel tonight, not as charity but as justice. That money should have been his in the first place." Miguel tried to protest, but Marcus had already hit send. "The rest of this month's revenue is going to a fund for delivery drivers dealing with vehicle repairs, medical emergencies, or other financial crises. Because no one should have to choose between their family's welfare and their dignity." Marcus looked directly into the camera for his closing statement. "I want everyone watching to understand something. Every person who delivers your food stocks, your groceries, serves your coffee, or helps you in any service capacity is someone's Miguel. They have families, dreams, struggles, and stories that matter. They deserve respect, not ridicule." He paused, gathering his thoughts. "I built my career on the lie that other people's pain was your entertainment. Miguel showed me tonight that other people's kindness could be our inspiration instead." As they prepared to end the live stream, Miguel asked if he could say something directly to the audience. "To everyone watching," Miguel said, "Thank you for taking the time to hear my story. But more than that, I want you to remember that kindness is always a choice. You can choose to see service workers as inconveniences, or you can choose to see us as people doing our best to help you and take care of our families." Miguel smiled with the same genuine warmth he had shown at Marcus's door hours earlier. "And to anyone working in delivery, retail, food service, or any job where people sometimes treat you poorly, your work has dignity because you do. Your kindness matters even when people don't appreciate it, and you're making a difference in ways you might never know." The live stream ended with over 200,000 viewers and comments pouring in faster than Marcus could read them. But the most important comment came from Miguel himself. "Marcus," he said, as they turned off the cameras, "thank you for letting me tell my story. But more than that, thank you for proving that people can change when they want to." Marcus looked at Miguel, no longer a target for content, but a friend who had saved him from becoming someone his future self would hate. "Thank you for showing me what I could become instead of what I was becoming," Marcus replied. Outside, the storm was finally breaking, and through Marcus's window they could see clear sky beginning to emerge from behind the clouds. It felt like the perfect metaphor for everything that had changed that night. Miguel gathered his delivery bag, now empty except for the hope that his story might help other service workers feel seen and valued. "Same time next week?" Marcus asked. I'd like to feature more delivery driver stories if you know anyone who'd be willing to share." Miguel laughed. "I know about 50 drivers who have stories that would amaze you. Stories about working through college, supporting families, chasing dreams, overcoming obstacles. Real stories about real people." "That sounds perfect," Marcus said. As Miguel prepared to leave, Marcus did something that would have been impossible at the beginning of the evening. He hugged him, not for content, not for cameras, but because Miguel Santos had reminded him what it felt like to be genuinely grateful to another human being. "Get home safe," Marcus said. "Your siblings are waiting." Miguel smiled and headed into the night, which was no longer stormy but clear and full of stars. Marcus watched him go, then turned back to his apartment full of cameras and equipment that would now be used to celebrate human dignity rather than exploit human struggles. His phone was buzzing with notifications. Brand partnership inquiries, interview requests, messages from other content creators wanting to understand his transformation. But the notification that mattered most was a text from Miguel an hour later. "Made it home safe. Sofia and Carlos say thank you for the scholarship fund you mentioned. And Marcus, thank you for proving that the internet can be a place where good things happen too." Marcus smiled and began planning content that would honor that faith. For the first time in his career, he was excited to create something that would make the world better instead of worse. The ripple effect. Within 48 hours, Marcus's transformation video had accumulated 3.2 million views and spawned a movement that would reshape how content creators approached service worker interactions. The video's comment section became a repository of stories from delivery drivers, retail workers, and service employees who shared their own experiences with both cruelty and kindness from customers. But more importantly, it became a space where people committed to treating service workers with dignity and respect. Mosanen. Delivery driver stories began trending across all social platforms, with thousands of people sharing positive encounters with service workers and pledging to approach future interactions with empathy rather than entitlement. But the most significant response came from an unexpected source: Miguel's 16-year-old sister, Sofia. Sofia Santos had watched her brother's late-night shift, with the usual mixture of worry and pride that defined her relationship with Miguel's work. When he came home at 1:30 a.m., soaked but smiling, carrying coffee and pastries that a customer insisted he take, Sofia knew something unusual had happened. Miguel had told his siblings about Marcus's planned exploitation and ultimate transformation, about the scholarship fund, about the possibility that their story might help other families facing similar struggles. What Miguel didn't expect was Sofia's response. "I want to make a video," she announced at breakfast the next morning. "About what?" Carlos asked, looking up from the math homework he completed at their kitchen table every morning before school. "About what it's really like to be the family of a delivery driver," Sofia said. "About watching Miguel work 17-hour days, about being proud of him, while worrying he'll get hurt riding his motorcycle in bad weather, about how customers' attitudes affect our whole family." Miguel nearly choked on his coffee. "Sofia, you don't have to—" "I want to," she interrupted. "Marcus said he wants to show people that every delivery driver is someone's family member. Well, I'm that family member. I want people to understand what it feels like on this side of the door." Sofia's video, posted to TikTok 2 days later, became a phenomenon that eclipsed even Marcus's transformation story. Speaking directly to the camera from their small apartment kitchen, Sofia explained what it was like to be Miguel's sister, with the articulate passion of someone who had learned early to advocate for people she loved. "When my brother leaves for work at 6 a.m., I don't know if he'll make it home safely," Sofia began. "Not because the job is dangerous, but because people have gotten mean. They order food during storms and complain when it takes longer. They blame drivers for restaurant mistakes. They treat my brother like he's invisible, like he's just a service instead of a person." Sofia's voice carried the weight of watching someone she admired face daily disrespect. "Miguel is the smartest person I know. He was studying engineering before our parents died. He could have finished his degree and gotten a job that people respect more, but he chose to take care of Carlos and me instead." She showed the camera Miguel's textbooks still stacked on a shelf in their living room, evidence of dreams deferred but not abandoned. Every late-night delivery he takes is so Carlos and I can have school supplies, clothes that fit food in the refrigerator. When customers are rude to him, they're being rude to our provider, our protector, our hero. Sophia's video continued with a request that resonated across social media. The next time someone delivers food to your house, remember that they might have a sister like me at home, worrying about them, proud of them, grateful for every customer who treats them with kindness. The video accumulated 8.7 million views in its first week, spawning response videos from siblings, children, parents, and partners of service workers across the country. But Sophia wasn't finished. She used her sudden platform to create content about working-class families, about teenagers who took part-time jobs to help with household expenses, about the dignity of honest work, regardless of its social status. Most importantly, she partnered with Marcus to create a series called Behind the Delivery, featuring interviews with drivers and their families, showcasing the full human stories behind food service interactions. The series' first episode featured Miguel and Sophia, together with Marcus, asking questions that revealed the complexity, love, and resilience that characterized their daily life. "What do you want people to know about delivery drivers?" Marcus asked Sophia during filming. "That we're not just grateful for their tips," Sophia replied. "We're grateful when they say thank you, when they acknowledge that our family member is doing something helpful for them, when they treat Miguel like he matters." Carlos, initially shy about being on camera, warmed up when Marcus asked about his mathematics talent. "Miguel bought me a graphing calculator with money from his delivery job," Carlos said, showing the camera his prized possession. "Every equation I solve was made possible by someone ordering food and Miguel getting it to them safely." The simple statement carried profound weight, connecting abstract customer interactions to concrete family impact. Marcus watched his channel's transformation with amazement. His subscriber count had actually increased beyond its previous peak, but more importantly, his audience had completely changed. Instead of people seeking confrontational content, he now attracted viewers who wanted to celebrate human dignity and service worker advocacy. Brand partnerships that previously focused on conflict generation now offered opportunities to highlight worker-friendly businesses and ethical consumption practices. But the partnership that mattered most came from Miguel himself. "I've been thinking," Miguel said during one of their weekly planning sessions, "about starting a delivery driver support network. Something to help people in our situation connect with resources, share strategies for dealing with difficult customers, maybe even advocate for better working conditions." Marcus nodded enthusiastically. "What would you need to make that happen? Mostly just platform support and some funding for a website, communication tools, maybe emergency assistance funds for drivers dealing with vehicle breakdowns or medical emergencies." Marcus opened his laptop immediately. "Let's make it happen." The Santos Family Delivery Driver Network launched 6 weeks after Marcus's midnight transformation, funded by revenue from his reformed content and supported by a community of viewers who had learned to see service workers as human beings, deserving of dignity and support. Miguel continued working deliveries, but now he also spent time each week helping other drivers navigate challenges, connecting them with resources, and advocating for industry-wide improvements to working conditions and customer relations. Sophia started a scholarship program for siblings of service workers, helping teenagers pursue education while their families navigated economic challenges. Carlos tutored other students in mathematics, creating a small income stream that reduced pressure on Miguel's delivery schedule. And Marcus discovered that creating content about human dignity and resilience was far more rewarding than anything he had produced during his years of manufactured controversy. The midnight storm that had brought Marcus and Miguel together had indeed passed. But it had left behind something neither man could have anticipated: a friendship built on mutual respect, a business partnership dedicated to social good, and proof that the internet could be a force for connection rather than cruelty. The last video in Marcus's Behind the Delivery series featured him working alongside Miguel for a full shift, learning firsthand about the challenges and rewards of delivery driving. Viewers watched Marcus struggle with GPS navigation fumble with insulated bags and gradually develop appreciation for skills he had never considered difficult. But the most powerful moment came at the end of the shift when Marcus and Miguel sat in Marcus's car, both exhausted but satisfied. "What did you learn tonight?" Miguel asked. Marcus considered the question seriously. That every job has dignity when it's done with care. That every customer interaction is an opportunity to practice kindness, and that the best content comes from celebrating people rather than exploiting them. Miguel smiled. "What are you going to do with that knowledge?" Marcus looked at his camera, then at Miguel, then back at the camera. "Keep learning," he said. "Keep growing. Keep using whatever influence I have to make sure people like you get the respect you've always deserved." As they drove through the city streets that Miguel navigated every day, Marcus realized that his transformation hadn't ended with one viral video or one changed perspective. It had to continue every day, in every interaction, with every choice, to see service workers as complete human beings rather than convenient targets for content. The storm had passed, but the clear sky it revealed was full of possibilities for what the internet, and the people who used it, could become. The network grows. 6 months after the midnight transformation, the Santos family delivery driver network had grown into something neither Marcus nor Miguel had imagined possible. What started as a simple support system for local drivers had evolved into a national advocacy organization with chapters in 47 cities, partnering with restaurants to improve driver treatment, negotiating with delivery apps for better working conditions, and providing emergency assistance to thousands of drivers facing financial crises. Miguel had been invited to speak at industry conferences, consult with AP companies on driver relations, and testify before city councils about worker protection legislation. But he still worked deliveries 3 nights a week, insisting that he needed to stay connected to the daily reality of the work he was trying to improve. Sophia had started her senior year of high school with college acceptance letters and scholarship offers that would have been impossible without the platform her brother's story had created. But rather than just accepting the opportunities, she had used her growing influence to advocate for educational support for other working-class students. Carlos had discovered that his mathematics talent could be monetized through online tutoring, creating an income stream that reduced pressure on Miguel while building his own confidence and academic prospects. And Marcus had transformed Real Reviews with Marcus into Real Stories with Marcus, becoming one of YouTube's most respected voices for worker dignity and ethical business practices. But the most significant development came when Miguel received an unexpected phone call on a Tuesday evening in October. "Is this Miguel Santos from the Delivery Driver Support Network?" the caller asked. "Yes, this is Miguel. My name is Jennifer Walsh. I'm a producer with 60 Minutes. We'd like to do a segment about your organization and its impact on the gig economy." Miguel nearly dropped his phone. 60 Minutes wants to interview me. We want to interview your whole family, actually. Your story, and your partnership with Marcus Thompson, represent something unique in how social media can be used for positive change rather than just controversy and exploitation. The 60 Minutes segment aired 3 weeks later, featuring interviews with Miguel, Sofia, and Carlos in their small apartment footage of Miguel at work, and extensive coverage of how Marcus's transformation had sparked a national conversation about service worker dignity. But the segment's most powerful moment came when Marcus and Miguel were interviewed together about their unlikely friendship. Marcus correspondent Leslie Stahl asked, "You built a career on exploiting people like Miguel. What makes you think you deserve forgiveness?" Marcus looked at Miguel, then back at Stahl. "I don't think I deserve forgiveness," he said honestly. But Miguel offered it anyway, along with the chance to become someone better. "The question isn't whether I deserve it. The question is what I do with the opportunity he gave me." "And what have you done with it?" Marcus pulled out his phone and showed the screen to the camera. "We've raised over $400,000 for driver emergency assistance funds. We've helped pass worker protection legislation in 12 cities. We've partnered with restaurants to create driver-friendly policies that improve working conditions." He paused, then continued. "But more than that, I hope we've helped people understand that service workers aren't just background characters in their lives. They're complete human beings with families, dreams, and struggles that deserve respect." Stahl turned to Miguel. "What do you want people to take away from your story?" Miguel smiled with the same genuine warmth that had first disarmed Marcus 6 months earlier. "That kindness is always possible," Miguel said. "Whether you're delivering food in a storm or receiving it from your warm apartment, you have a choice about how you treat other people. Choose kindness. Choose to see the whole person, not just the service they're providing." The 60 Minutes segment generated more national attention than Miguel had ever expected, but also more responsibility than he felt prepared to handle. "I'm still just a delivery driver," he told Marcus during one of their weekly planning meetings. "I dropped out of engineering school. I'm not qualified to be a spokesperson for labor rights." Marcus looked at his friend, because that's what Miguel had become despite the circumstances that brought them together, with admiration that never failed to surprise them both. "Miguel, you're the most qualified person I know to speak about this work because you live it every day. Your credibility doesn't come from credentials, it comes from authenticity." "But what if I say something wrong? What if I make mistakes that hurt the movement?" Marcus laughed. "Then you'll learn from them and do better next time. That's what growth looks like." The conversation was interrupted by Sophia, who burst through the apartment door with acceptance letters to 3 different universities, all offering full scholarships. "I got in," she announced, waving the letters like victory flags. "All 3 schools full rides, and UCLA even offered a work-study program that lets me continue advocacy work while I study education." Miguel swept his sister into a hug that lifted her off the ground. "I'm so proud of you, Sophia. Mom and Dad would be so proud." Carlos looked up from his homework with a grin. "Does this mean I get your room when you leave for college?" Sophia laughed. "You'll have to negotiate that with Miguel. He's the one paying rent." Marcus watched this family celebration with the warm satisfaction of someone who had helped make it possible, but also with the deeper gratitude of someone whose life had been fundamentally improved by their presence in it. His phone buzzed with a notification from YouTube. Another milestone reached, another brand partnership inquiry, another interview request. But none of those achievements felt as meaningful as watching Sophia celebrate her college acceptances or seeing Carlos confidently explain a calculus problem to his online tutoring students. "Marcus," Miguel said, as Sophia and Carlos continued their celebration, "I want you to know something." "What's that?" "That night 6 months ago when you told me you'd been planning to exploit my struggles for content, I wasn't just disappointed in you. I was disappointed in a world that rewarded that kind of cruelty." Miguel paused, choosing his words carefully. "But watching you change, seeing you use your platform to celebrate instead of exploit, helping you build something that actually helps people, it restored my faith that the internet could be a force for good." Marcus felt tears prick his eyes. "Miguel, you saved me from becoming someone I would have hated. You gave me the chance to build something I could actually be proud of." "We gave each other that chance," Miguel corrected, "and we're going to keep giving it to other people." Outside their apartment window, the city hummed with the activity of thousands of delivery drivers, rideshare operators, food service workers, and other service professionals navigating the complex intersection of technology, labor, and human dignity. Many of them now carried cards with information about the Santos family network, knew they had resources available if their vehicles broke down or customers mistreated them, and understood that their work was valued by a growing community of advocates. Marcus's reformed content had spawned dozens of imitators, other creators who had abandoned confrontational content in favor of celebrating service workers, highlighting small businesses, and fostering genuine human connection through their platforms. The transformation that began with one storm, one delivery, and one moment of unexpected human kindness had become a movement that was changing how people thought about work, dignity, and the possibilities of social media. But for Marcus and Miguel, the most important measure of their success wasn't view counts or media coverage or national recognition. It was nights like this one, sitting in a small apartment with a family that had taught them both what it meant to choose kindness over cruelty, connection over exploitation, and hope over cynicism. The storm had long since passed, but the clear sky it revealed was full of stars and infinite possibilities for what they could build together. The full circle. 1 year after their midnight encounter, Marcus and Miguel stood together outside Sunrise Cafe, the same establishment where David Rodriguez had learned his own lesson about human dignity months earlier. They weren't there for delivery or content creation. They were there for the Santos Family Network's first annual Service Worker Appreciation Day, an event that had grown from a simple idea into a citywide celebration involving dozens of businesses, hundreds of volunteers, and thousands of service workers. The event provided free meals, vehicle maintenance career development workshops, and, most importantly, a public recognition of the essential role service workers played in keeping the city functioning. Miguel wore a name tag identifying him as Network Co-founder alongside his usual delivery uniform. He had insisted on working a full shift before the event, maintaining his commitment to staying connected to the daily reality of the work he was advocating to improve. Marcus carried a professional camera, but not for ambush content or manufactured controversy. He was documenting genuine moments of appreciation, celebration, and community connection, the kind of content that had transformed his career and his understanding of what influence could accomplish. "You ready for this?" Marcus asked Miguel as they watched hundreds of people stream into the event space. Miguel smiled, but Marcus could see the nervousness behind his confident expression. "I still can't believe this many people care about delivery drivers." "They always cared," Marcus corrected. "They just needed someone to show them how to express it properly. That was you, Miguel." The event featured booths from local businesses offering job opportunities, training programs, and career advancement pathways for service workers. Food trucks provided free meals. Mechanics offered free vehicle inspections and minor repairs. Legal aid organizations provided information about worker rights and protections. But the most popular attraction was the story-sharing booth, where service workers could record their own experiences to be featured in Marcus's ongoing documentary series about dignity in the gig economy. Sophia, now a college freshman studying education with a focus on working-class student advocacy, served as the event's main coordinator. Her organizational skills and natural leadership had transformed her from Miguel's worried sister into a formidable advocate in her own right. Carlos, now a high school junior with a thriving online tutoring business, managed the event's social media presence and live-streamed key moments for people who couldn't attend in person. As the day progressed, Marcus found himself interviewing delivery drivers, rideshare operators, food service workers, and retail employees who shared stories that ranged from heartbreaking to inspiring. There was Maria, a single mother who worked 3 different delivery apps to support her children's education. There was James, a retiree who drove for rideshare companies to supplement his social security and stay active in his community. There was Aisha, a college graduate who used food delivery work to pay off student loans while searching for positions in her field. Each story reinforced the same truth Miguel had taught Marcus that stormy night. Every service worker was a complete human being, with dreams, struggles, families, and dignity that deserved recognition and respect. But the day's most powerful moment came when Miguel was invited to speak to the gathered crowd about the network's first year and its plans for the future. Miguel approached the microphone with the same humble confidence he brought to every delivery, every interview, every conversation about worker dignity. A year ago, he began, "I was just a delivery driver trying to take care of my family. I had no idea that one customer interaction would change not just my life, but create a movement that would help thousands of other workers." The crowd, a mixture of service workers, customers, business owners, and community advocates, listened with the respectful attention Miguel's authentic voice always commanded. The Santos Family Network started with a simple idea that every person working to serve others deserves to be treated with dignity and respect. That every delivery driver, every cashier, every server, every rideshare operator is someone's family member, someone's hope for the future. Miguel paused, looking out at faces that represented every aspect of the service economy ecosystem. But this network isn't just about protecting workers from bad treatment. It's about celebrating good treatment, supporting businesses that value their staff and customers, and creating communities where service isn't just a transaction, it's a connection between human beings. The applause was warm and sustained, but Miguel held up his hand for quiet. I want to thank someone who taught me that redemption is possible, that people can change, and that the internet can be a force for building people up instead of tearing them down. Miguel gestured toward Marcus, who felt his throat tighten with emotion. Marcus Thompson could have stayed in his apartment that night, posted his planned content, and continued making money from my struggles and the struggles of thousands of other workers. Instead, he chose to see me as a human being, to change his entire career direction, and to use his platform to advocate for dignity and respect. Miguel's voice carried across the crowd with increasing strength. That's the choice all of us have. In every interaction, we can see service workers as inconveniences, or we can see them as neighbors. We can treat them as invisible, or we can recognize their humanity. We can exploit their struggles, or we can celebrate their contributions. The crowd was completely quiet now, hanging on Miguel's words. Choose to see us. Choose to respect us. Choose to remember that every person serving you is working to take care of someone they love, pursuing dreams that matter, and deserving of the same kindness you would want for your own family members. The applause was thunderous, but Miguel wasn't finished. And to my fellow service workers, remember that your work has dignity because you bring dignity to it. Your kindness matters even when customers don't appreciate it. Your professionalism matters even when conditions are difficult. And your dreams matter even when they feel far away. Miguel smiled with the warmth that had first disarmed Marcus, and now inspired thousands of others. We're not just serving food or providing rides or processing transactions. We're serving our communities, providing for our families, and proving every day that honest work deserves honest respect. As Miguel stepped away from the microphone, Marcus realized that his friend had articulated something profound about the nature of work, dignity, and human connection that would resonate far beyond this single event. The day concluded with a ceremony recognizing businesses that had implemented worker-friendly policies, customers who had gone above and beyond to support service workers, and advocates who had used their platforms to promote dignity and respect. Marcus received an award for transformed advocacy, but he insisted that Miguel accept it with him. This recognition belongs to both of us, Marcus said into the microphone. But more than that, it belongs to every person who chooses kindness over cruelty, connection over exploitation, and hope over cynicism. As the sun set over the event space, Marcus and Miguel helped with cleanup alongside dozens of volunteers who had made the day possible. What's next? Marcus asked, as they loaded folding chairs into a rental truck. Miguel looked around at the volunteers, the remaining service workers still networking and sharing contact information, the business owners making plans for ongoing partnerships with the network. More cities, Miguel said. More workers connected to resources and advocacy. More customers educated about the impact of their behavior. More businesses committed to treating their staff with dignity. He paused, then added with a grin, and more content creators like you choosing to celebrate people instead of exploiting them. Marcus laughed. Any regrets about not finishing engineering school? Miguel considered the question seriously. I loved engineering, and maybe I'll go back to it someday. But right now I'm exactly where I need to be doing work that matters with people I care about. As they finished loading the truck, Sophia approached with a clipboard full of feedback forms and contact information from new network members. 43 new cities want to start chapters, she reported. 17 businesses want to partner with us on worker-friendly policies, and 6 content creators want to license your model for celebrating service workers in their content. Carlos looked up from his laptop, where he was compiling social media metrics from the day. The live stream had over 100,000 viewers, and Fonter's service worker appreciation is trending in 12 different cities. Marcus shook his head in amazement. A year ago, I was using social media to make people feel bad about themselves. Now we're using it to make people feel valued and respected. That's what growth looks like, Miguel said, echoing Marcus's words from months earlier. As they prepared to leave the event space, Marcus realized that his transformation wasn't just complete, it was ongoing. Every day brought new opportunities to choose celebration over exploitation, connection over conflict, hope over cynicism. The storm that had brought them together had indeed passed, but it had left behind something more valuable than either man could have imagined: a friendship built on mutual respect, a movement dedicated to human dignity, and proof that the most powerful content came from honoring people's stories rather than exploiting their struggles. Miguel's phone buzzed with a delivery request. Even on Service Worker Appreciation Day, the city needed food-delivered rides, provided services maintained. "Want to come with me?" Miguel asked Marcus. "I could use a camera operator for one more delivery story." Marcus grabbed his equipment with the enthusiasm he once reserved for confrontational content. "Let's go celebrate some more human dignity," he said. They climbed into Miguel's car, upgraded from his motorcycle with help from the Emergency Assistance Fund, and drove into the city night, ready to document another story of honest work performed with care, kindness chosen over indifference, and connection built through service. The transformation that began with one storm, one delivery, and one moment of unexpected grace had become a legacy that would outlast any viral video or trending hashtag. It had become a movement built on the simple truth Miguel had taught Marcus that first night, that every person deserving dignity, every interaction, was an opportunity for kindness, and every story was worth honoring when it was told with truth and respect. The legacy. 2 years after the midnight transformation that changed both their lives, Marcus Thompson and Miguel Santos stood before a joint session of Congress testifying about legislation that would establish federal protections for gig economy workers. The hearing room was packed with representatives from delivery companies, worker advocacy organizations, small business owners, and service workers from across the country. In the gallery, Sofia Santos, now a sophomore at UCLA studying education policy, took notes for a research paper on grassroots advocacy movements. Carlos Santos, now a high school senior with early acceptance to MIT's engineering program, live-streamed the hearing for the network's social media followers, providing real-time commentary about the policy implications of each question and response. Mr. Santos. Congresswoman Patricia Martinez, no relation to Miguel's family, addressed the microphone. "You've transformed from a delivery driver into a nationally recognized advocate for worker rights. What would you say to critics who argue that gig work was never intended to be a primary career path?" Miguel leaned toward his microphone with the same composed confidence he had developed over 2 years of speaking at conferences, consulting with companies, and advocating for legislative change. "Congresswoman, with respect, that argument misses the reality of how millions of Americans use gig work to support their families," Miguel replied. "Whether someone drives for delivery companies for 6 months or 6 years, they deserve basic protections, fair compensation, and dignity in their work." Miguel had learned to navigate these policy conversations while maintaining his connection to daily delivery work. He still drove 2 shifts per week, insisting that advocacy without ongoing experience would lose credibility and effectiveness. The Santos Family Network represents over 50,000 active gig workers across 47 states. Miguel continued. "They're not just temporary participants in the economy, they're essential workers who kept communities fed, connected, and functioning during the pandemic and continue to provide crucial services every day." Congressman James Walsh raised his hand for recognition. "Mr. Thompson, you've documented this transformation from exploitation to advocacy. What role do you think social media influencers should play in labor rights conversations?" Marcus straightened in his chair, still amazed that his testimony carried weight in congressional hearings, after years of creating content designed purely for entertainment. Congressman social media gives influencers unprecedented access to public attention and opinion formation. Marcus replied, "We have a responsibility to use that access ethically, to celebrate rather than exploit, to educate rather than merely entertain, to advocate for dignity rather than profit from humiliation." Marcus pulled up his phone to reference statistics he had prepared. The content celebrating service workers has generated over 200 million views across platforms, influenced consumer behavior toward worker-friendly businesses, and helped pass local worker protection legislation in 34 cities. But more importantly, Marcus continued, it's changed how millions of people think about service work and the human beings who perform it. That cultural shift creates the foundation for policy changes like the legislation we're discussing today. The hearing continued for 3 hours, covering topics from portable benefits and healthcare access to worker classification and platform accountability. Miguel and Marcus testified alongside economists, legal experts, and representatives from major gig economy companies. But the most powerful testimony came from an unexpected source, Dr. Elena Rodriguez, a pediatric surgeon who had worked delivery shifts to pay off medical school loans. "I want the committee to understand something." Dr. Rodriguez said, her voice carrying the authority of someone who had experienced both ends of the economic spectrum. "I performed my first heart surgery on a child 6 months ago. That surgery was successful partly because the fine motor skills I developed, gripping handlebars through storm deliveries, the problem-solving abilities I learned navigating complex delivery instructions, and the grace under pressure I practiced dealing with difficult customers." Dr. Rodriguez paused to let that information settle. Service work doesn't diminish people, it develops them. The question isn't whether gig workers deserve protection because their jobs are real careers. The question is whether we believe all honest work deserves dignity, fair compensation, and basic safety protections. The hearing room erupted in applause, and Marcus realized that Miguel's story had evolved into something far larger than either of them had imagined possible. After the hearing, Marcus and Miguel walked through Washington, D.C., with Sofia and Carlos processing the day's significance while enjoying rare time together as the extended family they had become. "Do you think the legislation will pass?" Sofia asked Miguel as they walked past the Capitol building. "I think we've created enough public pressure and documented enough evidence that politicians can't ignore the issue anymore," Miguel replied. "Whether this specific bill passes or not, the conversation has changed permanently." Carlos looked up from his phone where he was monitoring social media reactions to the hearing. The live stream had 340,000 concurrent viewers, and Houcher gig worker rights is trending nationally. "Looks like we got people's attention." Marcus laughed. 2 years ago, I was getting attention by making people feel bad about themselves. This feels infinitely better. They stopped for dinner at a small family restaurant near their hotel, where Miguel automatically thanked their server by name, asked about her shift, and left a generous tip, habits that had become second nature during his advocacy work. Miguel, Sofia said over dessert, "I've been thinking about my senior thesis project." "What about it?" "I want to research the long-term impact of the network on worker attitudes, customer behavior, and business practices. Document whether the changes we've created are sustainable or just temporary responses to media attention." Miguel nodded thoughtfully. "That's important research. What's your hypothesis?" Sofia smiled with the academic confidence she had developed during her college studies. "That authentic advocacy creates lasting change because it's built on genuine relationships rather than temporary outrage. When people see service workers as complete human beings, instead of abstract policy issues, they maintain supportive attitudes even when the media attention fades." "And if you're wrong?" Carlos asked, with the skeptical precision that made him an excellent mathematics student. "Then we learn what doesn't work and adapt our strategies," Sofia replied. "That's how growth happens." Marcus looked around the table at this family that had taught him more about resilience, kindness, and purposeful work than any business school or professional development program could have provided. "What's next for all of us?" he asked. Miguel pulled out a folder of documents he had been carrying throughout their Washington trip. "The network is expanding internationally. We've got interest from delivery worker organizations in 12 countries who want to adapt our model." He handed Marcus a letter with official letterhead. "And I've been accepted to a graduate program in labor policy at Georgetown. Part-time, so I can continue network work and delivery shifts. But I want to develop more sophisticated policy analysis skills." Marcus stared at the acceptance letter. "Miguel, this is incredible. When did you apply?" "6 months ago. Sophia helped me with the application essays." Miguel grinned. "Turns out my non-traditional background was actually an advantage in their evaluation process." Carlos reached into his own backpack and produced an early acceptance letter to MIT. "And I'll be studying engineering with a focus on technology ethics and labor automation. Someone needs to make sure the next generation of delivery systems actually serve workers instead of replacing them." Marcus felt tears prick his eyes as he processed how far this family had traveled from the night when Miguel had delivered pizza through a storm to an apartment where someone was planning to exploit his struggles. "I'm so proud of all of you," Marcus said honestly, "and grateful beyond measure that you let me be part of your journey." Sophia reached across the table and squeezed Marcus's hand. "You didn't just join our journey, Marcus. You chose to change your entire life direction because Miguel showed you a better way to be human. That takes courage that not everyone has." As they prepared to leave the restaurant, Miguel's phone buzzed with a delivery request from a local app. Even in Washington, D.C., even after testifying before Congress, he was still a working delivery driver. "Want to come with me?" Miguel asked Marcus, as he had dozens of times over the past 2 years. "Always," Marcus replied, grabbing his camera equipment. They walked out into the D.C. night, Miguel checking his GPS, while Marcus prepared to document another story of dignity in